Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Tanner. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode connects directly to what we've actually been learning in my cultural diversity and physical education class with Dr. Christian Martinez. And we're diving into something a lot of people sort of overlook in the gym, and that's how language differences affect students in PE. Now, most people would think like, oh, PE, isn't that just running around playing games and hoping you don't get hit by a dodgeball? But there's a lot more to it than that. PE has a ton of language built into it, and if you're a student who's still learning English, all that vocabulary can get overwhelming really fast, all right? So picture this. You're new to the country, English is a brand new language to you, you walk into PE, and the teacher kind of jumps right into it and says, all right, everyone, shuffle the cone, pivot, drop step, sprint out, and rotate. Now, if English isn't your first language, that might as well be someone yelling instructions in a foreign language and there's no subtitles, It's everyone else takes off exactly like they know what to do in the class, and you're just standing there trying to figure out what one of those words means. And that's when it hits, you're embarrassed, you're confused, you're kind of pulling back from participation, and it's not that the students don't want to play, it's just that they don't really understand the instructions. And, PE is a fast-moving class, so it hits harder here than, most other classes. All right? And it actually looks like we have a caller on the line, so let's take this call.
Oh, Tanner, love the show, dude. Quick question, though. Are PE teachers required to adapt their lessons, or is it just kind of something nice they can do?
And that is an awesome question. Perfect timing, too, so let's get into that. Appreciate the call, man. So, the caller asked if supporting English learners in PE is actually required. And, obviously it's yes. Absolutely. So, there's actually a couple laws and acts that really harp on this. We have the Every Student Succeeds Act, which basically says English learners must be supported in every class, and that definitely includes physical education. There is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, in, I believe it was 1964. It says schools can't disadvantage students based on their language or national origin. And actually here in New York State, teachers are expected to make the instruction accessible, which, that could be anything from visual cues, demonstrations, using clear language, all that good stuff. So, it's not just a nice thing to do per se, it's legally required. Right, and actually, in one of my other classes, a professor had actually talked about this article, Supporting English Language Learners in Physical Education, Strategies for Success by Gallego and Ford. And basically, their main point in the article was that most English learners struggle in PE not because they aren't athletic or don't want to engage, but because they can't fully understand the verbal instructions, The article really recommends things like modeling skills visually, like using pictures and simple diagrams, which I had actually talked about in one of my early projects in this class, really using visuals with both their native language and English so they can kind of learn and see the visuals and learn that way. Breaking down instructions step by step, checking in with students quietly on the sideline. It's something so small and so easy for us to do, and it really helps these students out. And then the last thing that they talked about was pre-teaching the vocab that you're going to be using in class. Like if you're teaching a basketball unit and you're using stuff like pivot or rotate, other classes you might say the words like follow through. So you might just want to go over this vocab with them before class, and it's super simple stuff, and it really goes a long way. And next, I would like to share a quick story that one of my other professors had shared with us in our swim and gym session. She came and presented to the adapted physical education program, and she shared this story. She used to be an adapted phys ed specialist, and at her old school, she had a student who I believe she said he was in either kindergarten or first grade, so he was a really young kid, and he came here with cerebral palsy out of Puerto Rico, and she is actually from Puerto Rico as well. So she had kind of broken down that language barrier already. But she got called into the PE class, and they were trying to figure out like ways to adapt their classes and, adjust for the student, because he was left out in just about everything they were doing. He was in a wheelchair, so he couldn't really participate that well. And what she did, she really kind of created this program for this student specifically, and she was working together with the PE teachers, coming up with solutions, finding ways for them to include the student, whether it be using the other students to help kind of engage him and support him, or adjusting their actual lesson plans to include him in ways that they couldn't before and they couldn't think of. And she really just kind of helped them get this student included in their class. And she said it was a great experience, watching this kid from going from sitting on the sidelines and, not really being able to participate. And now he was in the classes, smiling, having fun. The other students are including him. And she just said it was a great experience watching this kid grow and succeed. And, after hearing that story, it really made me feel everything that we've learned. It's actually happening in gyms every day where these phys ed students and teachers don't really know how to adapt to accustomed to language barriers and other students, and the way that she handled this and she even had to work with other teachers. I'm pretty sure she said that she was working with other teachers as well, trying to get that language barrier down. So on top of, him having that disability, like the English language barrier, it was just a double whammy, I guess. And she just said it was tough to overcome, but it was really rewarding in what she did. So let's talk about solutions real quick. Phys ed teachers don't really have to reinvent the wheel, so here's some super easy, effective things that they can do. Demonstrate instead of only explaining. This goes for really any phys ed teacher as well. This doesn't really just affect the English language barrier in class. You should have demonstrations in every class, even if all the students can understand your language. Using visuals, once again, should use it in every class. Use cones, arrows, diagrams. Keep your instructions short and simple. Try and avoid the slang and, super technical language, pre-teach and define that important vocabulary before class. Pair students up with, supportive friends and buddies that they can kind of cling on to, and they can help them during the class. And then, like we mentioned before, check in with the students quietly so they don't feel singled out. Check with them on the sidelines or during instruction. These little adjustments make a big impact, okay? And these solutions can really help advance and improve and help your students grow. And with that is our show for today. All right, language differences in PE are real. They matter, and supporting students is not optional. It is a responsibility. Huge shout out for our caller for that perfect question. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next episode. I believe this may be our last episode for this semester, so thank you all for listening. I hope to see you next year, and have a happy holiday.